So I just got back from seeing Avatar in theaters again after 13 years, and this is not going to be a review of the movie per se, but rather just talking about Avatar over the years and revisiting like the experience of it, which was quite something. The time I saw the movie when it first came out, it was in a standard 3D theater. It was in like I actually think it was January 2010 because for a long time you couldn't really get tickets because it was completely sold out. And when I went to see it with my family, I think we were pretty close to the front of the theater. The 3D wasn't particularly great. It was all very darkened and the effects weren't really coming through. It is an experience that was like it was great to see it in a movie theater, but it's not exactly like I got the transcendent experience. But technology has come such a long way since 2009 and 10, and especially when it comes to 3D. And so seeing it today in real D3D, but with high frame rate applied to it in some sequences, not only is this one of the most spectacular experiences I've had in a theater this year, but I have to say, in terms of 3D, it might be my favorite of all time. The spectacular use of it in this movie is it's so immersive and so wonderfully done, and I'm glad I got to see it like this properly finally, because this movie is visually just such a wonder, and I have loved it since 2009. I think this is a film that is genuinely awesome. I have issues with it. I mean, it's not a perfect movie by any means. It definitely could use a bit, a bit more tightening up of like scripting or characters in some places. And, it's not the most complex story in the world. But when I go to a James Cameron movie, those are things that I feel like happen quite often with Cameron films, especially since like True Lies, where it's just like it's more focusing on everything else that's going on around it, like rather than just kind of trying to be like, super character piece 101. Yet despite that, you get enough to connect with the characters that you want to keep watching. And regardless of what a internet will tell you in terms of no one can remember the first character's like name or anything like that, Jake Sully is a pretty easy name to remember. I've remembered Neytiri for years, or Sute, or Quaritch, or Grace Augustine, Max Patel, Norm Spellman, Trudy. These are not names that I now remember because I saw the movie. These are names I've remembered since I saw the movie years ago, and I have gone back and seen many times over on Blu-ray. And I can't wait to own this version of the film because the high dynamic range work is amazing. It's been touched up for sure. It's much brighter now. There's some touch up with the visuals. It's much sharper to look at, and the sequences that are done in high frame rate are genuinely amazing. Now, I actually haven't seen a high frame rate movie in theaters. I almost did with Gemini Man. I had the opportunity to in fact see it in the 120 frames per second version because that was at Lincoln Square in IMAX, but then I didn't particularly like the 24 frames per second screening, so I was like, you know what, we'll see what happens about that. And then I just could not get the time to go and check it out. But having seen this one in the high frame rate, it's seamless. There are sequences that use it and you would never even like feel like it's jarring at any point in time. It's so naturally executed, and it might be the best use of it based on everything that I've heard. That also goes to King Cameron, man. And I say that because this man knows the technology when it comes to implementing it in his movies. He gets it, and Avatar looks better than ever. As for the movie, like I said, this is not a review, but I really have loved this thing since the start. When I remember the first time seeing it, there's this shot of the ship when it's coming in and you see Pandora in the distance like reflected off the ship. I kept thinking, wow, that is one of the best visuals I've seen in my entire life. And there are so many moments like that across the entire movie. The scene where they're climbing up the mountains to essentially get to the other Ikran, that is fantastic as well. Looks amazing as always. James Horner, may he rest in peace. That score is incredible. I mean, I'm looking forward to hearing what they've done with The Way of Water, which I'll talk more about in a second. There's something over there. But it's just so wonderfully done. The entire movie is a visual technical marvel. And yes, the character work is minimal, but it works enough that you're able to be invested in it. But having seen it again, I feel like there is a lot more that I missed the first time, or I have missed on subsequent viewings. There's so much more to garner with all of these characters, especially with Jake and Neytiri. And I have to say, this is the theatrical version that we've seen. On the Blu-ray, they have released an extended version, which is about 15 minutes longer. I still prefer that version. If that's, like if we're going by like rankings, I think as far as it goes, if you want to see the movie, I would recommend seeing the 3 hour version because it's an alternate opening with Jake on Earth, and that entire setup and the way that's entirely like put together, you get a bit of insight into Grace's school and Neytiri's sister who's no longer with us. That's the version I would recommend watching if you get the chance. But it doesn't change the fact that this experience is still fantastic. And I highly recommend checking it out. If you're somebody who has been a fan of this movie since 2009 and is excited for the sequel, then I really do recommend it. Which let's talk about for a second. The sequel is teased a bit at the end of this one. There's one little thing that they added in this movie. It's a little scene towards the ending, which I was like, oh, that's new. And you have a character moment, and essentially that's like one setup. But then they gave a 4-minute clip of The Way of Water, and I can't believe that that's not real. There's the water looks so goddamn real, and you're telling me that's not real? Like, I mean, yeah, I know the sequences were shot at like, in a tank and something like that. I know that, but it's mind-boggling how phenomenal the visual effects are these days, and when used like well as they are when it comes to a James Cameron movie, it's just, as a film goer, as someone who's just loves these spectacles at times on the big screen, it's just an absolute delight to see it come to life. And Avatar has just been that staple when you go back to it, and it continues to be that staple. It is just absolutely wonderful to be reminded of how great and how big you can go. And this movie is the biggest movie of all time for a reason. It's opened pretty big again. In fact, it's just a re-release, I know, for a couple of weeks, but it's already made $30 million worldwide. This movie does not stop, and it's not because no one cares, it's because people do care, and it's an experience people want to keep going back to. Like, once you enter Pandora, especially in 3D again right now, like, it never feels like you're in a digital environment. It feels like you're in a world, and that level of immersion that it creates remains to be just absolutely transcendent and unparalleled when it comes to most things. The one thing I will say though is that the movie was in widescreen. Now, from what I know, The Way of Water is in widescreen, but if you watch it in IMAX, it's the full container. Avatar has been the full one since the time it was released and on disc. So I was kind of surprised as to why they're doing that. I guess they're trying to be consistent with the version that's going to be for Way of Water, mostly in theaters. I don't really know, but regardless of that, I mean, it doesn't change the fact that, it visually still looks absolutely incredible. I can say that over and over again. We could spend 15 minutes in this video just talking about how incredible it looks and how monumental it looks. But you know what? I've already said all that. I really just wanted to talk about the trip right now, which was amazing. It sounds better than ever too. There were Dolby Atmos speakers in my theater, and it just, the sound was just absolutely fantastic. Like, there were moments where you could feel the footsteps, of these of the creatures of Pandora just like running towards you, and that third act is still so viscerally done. Home Tree's destruction, heartbreaking as ever. The first flight with Ikran, fantastic. The first time you enter Pandora, especially with even if it's the landing or it's the moment where Jake finally enters and he's just cheering over what he's seeing while Trudy flies. All of it, it's I don't know. I'm just really happy right now. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the sequel later this year. I can't wait to finally see that thing. It's been in development for so long. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic, and I'm looking forward to what more there is in this world to offer. I mean, it's a special time, especially for cinema, blockbuster cinema, honestly. So guys, that's my quick little retrospective that's almost 10 minutes long on Avatar's re-release. It was great to finally talk about it. I just realized I have never spoken about this movie on this channel or in any capacity, so it's nice to finally have this out there. Did you guys go and check out the re-release in theaters this weekend, or are you planning on going over the next couple of weeks? Let me know in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on the movie generally? Do you like the film? Have you always not liked the film? Anything goes. Personally, it's a favorite. I really do love it. It's one of my favorite science fiction movies of all time. But I know everyone has their own tastes. And let me know all their stuff accordingly. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.